moving on to our very next conversation, and the federal government had promised in October 2023 that there was going to be a student loan scheme, something that was introduced by Femi Bajabiamila in the Ninth Assembly. It was giving accent to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu comes into office and actually says this is a good idea. Several controversies, several questions have been asked. ASU has a body language with regards to this. It had a timeline for November 2023 to be started off, but November came and passed. January was the rescheduled deadline, but it came again and passed. As of yesterday, we had news that it has been indefinitely postponed. What is the fate of our Nigerian students, and why are these policies seeing this kind of skirmishes that we have? We have joining us Dr. Wisdom ENANG of this moment to have this particular conversation with us. There's quite a number of questions that we need to ask. Good morning, Engineer Wisdom ENANG. Good to have you on Rise and Shine this Thursday morning. Good morning.
For inviting me today.
Good morning.
Good morning, Doctor. Good to have you joined us. Let's get right on it. We had to come back to you because you sounded very positive the last time we had conversations about some of the policies of this administration, and we understand those sentiments. But let's look at this particular policy of the President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's administration. It's been suspended multiple times. The date lines for the implementation shifted multiple times, and eventually we're saying it is being suspended indefinitely. What's your take on this, sir?
I think the biggest problem was the implementation of it. And the second thing is the feasibility, how the repayment of the loans are going to happen. So, I was worried, and everybody was worried. We're thinking, why can't it be grants? Why can't it be given as stipends? I mean, why loans? Because a lot of Nigerians, so let's look at the landscape of the Nigerian, youth. They finish school, they struggle to get jobs here, so how are they going to pay back in 2 years? The second thing is, everyone is Japa oriented. So the truth is, where they're going to enter into the wind. Where will you get them? Our banking system isn't as developed to track some of these people 2 years on. So, it became a point of worries as to the implementation, both from an affordability standpoint, but the implementation based on, okay, even if they can afford it, how do you get this money back? Because in the UK, let me give you context. In the UK, for example, the conditions within which you get student loan is actually makes it that over 40% of people do not pay back that loans. And I'll give you a context. It says you must get a job. The job must be at a certain salary level. So what happens if I get a job and it's not at that salary level? So how do you intend to absorb that sort of deficit from an economic standpoint? So there was a lot of, I think this was one of those political moves, but really had a lot of fragmentations when it comes to the issue of the actual nitty-gritty of implementation.
Okay. Nitty-gritty of implementation. Now, it's such a pity. We would say that this is going to greatly affect the psychology of the students, because a lot of them that have had to drop out of school as a result of lack of funds, we're hoping that this student loan scheme, although has been berated by ASU and several other factors, just like some of the factors that you've numbered. Now, what do you think is going to be the fate of the students who will no longer be able to have hope to get back to school using the student loan scheme? Indefinitely means that we may not be hearing anything about the scheme till the end of 2024.
I mean, I think, the truth is, either way, whether you stop it or the student loan it was going to affect either way. Some of those students, frankly, haven't seen a student loan. They don't know what they're walking into. That's the truth of the matter. I've been in clients where student loan accounted for 85% of the home students' fee payment. And I know what it means. It's a very it could be kind of burdensome, especially where you don't have a job. And I think the federal government, right, back in the days, let me tell you how things were done. For example, I know some universities that were looking for lecturers to employ in their university. And what they did was they wanted to start a university, and maybe they want a certain quota of people from that local environment uh, being part of the university. Now, what they did was to simply get the indigenous to train. And so they said, okay, look, we're going to train you, and then we're going to guarantee you a job, but then you're bonded to come back and work for us. That's how it's done in the UAE, for example. They do this thing, but they tell you it's a loan. You can only repay back if you don't come back and work. But if you come back and work, you can amortize that loan throughout the years of work. And then if they, for example, if they trained you for 4 years, you have to come back and work for 4 years. So I think, I want people to have a cautious optimism, because student loan, when you don't have a job, could be cumbersome. So I think the emphasis should be, do we have a strategic plan for the youth for the future? How are we implementing it? And can we marry that with the student loan thing? For example, we could do examinations. The best of the best are giving these loans. And then they're also, in a way, giving a sort of a bond letter to say either you pay back this loan with XYZ interest, or you work for us. I think if we tie it down to some sort of a way to stem the Japa syndrome, I think we would have a better chance of making it look more attractive. But if you're giving someone a student loan and you don't even know what their plans are, it could just be a way of subsidy drain. It's just a way, except that's what they're planning. That's fine. But I don't see the sustainability without running the model that Arabic Emirates are running, which is they give you that loan, but they tie you to a certain labor agreement. That way, it's a way of training and retaining their very best in the country.
Okay, Doctor, let me take you mind back to some of the conversations that Nigerians have, raised as far as the NYSC is concerned, and the fact that the scheme has outlived its usefulness. Would you propose, the model you're bringing, rather than subscribe to forcing the generality of Nigerian graduates to go serve when the situation is not, suitable for them? Would you propose a situation where we have this loan scheme given to students, and then those who come under this loan scheme now have the mandatory 1 year or 2 years to serve the federal government under this scheme or a similar scheme before now having the freedom to go in the event that there is no other alternative for them to be able to pay back?
A match. Now let's be very careful. The reason I say so is there have been significant benefits for people who have gone on to serve. I've seen people that have gone on to serve. That has changed their fortune. They found jobs that they wouldn't have found. I, for one, I think service was a blessing to me. The reason was this: before service, the sort of things I liked a quiet, reserved life. And I remember my mom telling me, look, get out there, push yourself out of your comfort zones. You've got a lot to offer. And that was one thing that my service here did offer to me. So, I mean, there are a number of benefits economically for people going out to serve. It's all about the mindset, really. And I found people that have even gone to serve and they've seen a lot of, they've built their entire lives in those regions that they went to serve. So, yes, we can make it complementary and say, look, for those that are getting this loan, these are the provisions. I don't know exactly what would work, because remember, you put out one initiative and then you have some labor reaction saying, no, that's not right, whether it be from ASU, whether it be from the labor unions. So it's not something I can sit here to say this is what will work. You will need to bring people to the table. You need to talk to a lot of stakeholders and see exactly what works for them and what they're willing to consent to. So I think, in a nutshell, yes, there's a number of ways we can tie those loans to national service. National service, whether it be working for the country, national service, whether it be service. I mean, there's a number of ways, and I think that's a productive way. And that's a way to really ration this thing, because people would naturally just say no. I'll give you context. When I was looking for a scholarship for my PhD program, I was approached by, well, I actually indicated interest in the then Akwa State University, and I said I wanted to apply. But when they gave me they told me we would apply and would go through the process. But if you're successful, would tie you down for I think 4 years because it's a 4 years training, meaning you have to come and be a lecturer. That did not sit well with my personal plans at that particular point in time. And so I declined the position. I said I wasn't interested. I was going to pull together resources, however I can, to go through my PhD program. So I think when you put that to national service, a lot of people will say, well, I'm interested, I'm not interested. One thing you should find, though, is this. Um, that in itself will cut down a lot of interest because do you know the many Nigerians, and I tell you what, I did a social experiment. There are a lot of Nigerians who, under the president Muhammadu Buhari's, there was a scheme that he was giving out. They were giving out money to different people. I think on a monthly basis. I've forgotten the name of the scheme. But what will shock you was this: we're complaining on one hand that President Buhari printed a lot of money for the Trader Money Initiative and for that particular initiative. However, do you know that there were people that were actually working? They had a salary of over 100,000, and they managed to subscribe and get this money that I think was 30,000 at the time.
Yeah.
That President, Buhari was giving out to different people. There was a name they call it, but it's escaped my mind now. But the point I'm trying to make is this, right? And I asked one of them, I said, what are you doing? You've got a job. He said, well, it's free money. But today we're complaining about inflation. Did we know where they minted that money and gave to us? So my point is, one way to contain the explosiveness and the cash liability of such the liability of such schemes is to tie it to a performance bond, whereby people know that there's something at the tail end, and a lot of deterrence will apply. People will just say, well, I think I can pay my fees, I don't want it anymore.
Okay.
But when you leave it free for all, it will be there'll be an outcry of everybody wanting it and everybody needing part of it, and I don't think it's something we can sustain long term.
Okay. Thank you so much. Really wise words there by Dr. Wisdom ENANG this morning. I mean, wise words by Dr. Wisdom. If you want a scheme to be very successful, tie it to a performance bond. And I like the example that he gave of the government of the UAE and how these kinds of schemes work. Thank you very much, Dr. Wisdom ENANG, for coming on the show this morning and answering these very big questions. It's quite an elephant in the room of Nigeria and education and students at the moment. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. And, it's always a pleasure talking to you, the team on Spectrum.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Quite a very revelatory move there. If the government will rejig and look into this, it will be in their best interest. Some persons think that postponement of this is in the best interest of the implementation of that scheme. But that's the much we can talk about on Rise and Shine. Personally, I think it's been a good day, and thank you to everyone who's been a part of the conversation. My name is Uyai Anekan.
And I am Francis Oyimaide. Thanks for joining us.
My name is Sandra Agu. Thank you so much for watching.
Until tomorrow, do have a great business day. Bye-bye for now.